Just figured this was time to discuss things.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is Youngstown Stock Channel, Joe and Kelin.
Morning.
Welcome to the morning.
Welcome to the morning show. Well,
Kelin, first strike, as always. What do you got?
Oh, I don't know. I guess, do you want to just get straight into like making people fight or something?
I don't care. Like, if you're an aggressive person and you like to sow discontent, go for it.
I mean, not typically, but why not? Why not? I've been hearing some interesting tidbits of information and just curious how you and anyone else feel about them. Like the idea of using tariff money to cover the cost of WIC during the government shutdown. Have you heard about this?
So you're going to have to get better. Okay. So I wish there were math logic people, right? And so when you impose a tariff, you have actual sort of like fallout from imposing a tariff. So you use the tariff money to be able to backfill the connected fallout from the tariffs. So you'd have to make the argument to be able to spend tariff money on something that is not related to tariffs. That's a long haul for me.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I saw a headline that even said like tariff money, the political football during shutdown.
Yes.
Like
it's really not.
Right. It very much feels like, I remember my first reaction when I read this thinking, oh, interesting. Looks like we might be saved by this tariff money that people didn't like. Then like you said, well, if we were saving it or we were gaining this money because of a need.
All right. So what do tariffs do? What are tariffs? Let's explain it to
lay that out. Tariffs, money that is paid or is charged for goods, for items that we're in business with other
Okay, so
areas.
you have a choice to be able to buy a product from North Carolina or China. North Carolina has to follow regulations and protocols and have pay rates. China has different ones. So tariff is made to make those be parity. So I wouldn't all of a sudden prop up the economy of China and give them a benefit of not following the same regulations that we are, so that a consumer then can choose the China one at the same price as the one in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
And so gives not a benefit to American-made goods, but gives a parity to American-made goods. Okay, so people figure out like what the production costs of certain things are. Now, consumers, they love cheap shit, right? And they love making that cheap shit or buying that cheap shit based on the blood money and the, these people held hostage and slave labor and child labor. And as long as you don't tell them about that part, they'll love saving money because in your paycheck, you buy something. If you can buy it cheaper, then you have more money to spend on other things. The Ross Perot's of the world pointed out that in the short term, yes, that's a great benefit. The problem is when you're sending your money to China and the guy in North Carolina who hires people who are your neighbors isn't getting that money, they can't afford to reinvest it back in your own country, right? And so we had decades of being able of financing other countries rather than our own. So you have to transition where if you're going to change it, right, you have to give a period of time for the marketplace to react back to where it should have been all along. All right. So if there's a good that's not available in the United States, that is a great importation argument, right? So if we don't have lithium here in the United States, we got to be like, okay, well, we're going to go out to another part of the world and we got to give something up from the United States and trade for lithium in a place that has it and we need it, right? And so as long as long as math people and logic people are in control, that stuff all works out, because you'd be able to figure out if your neighbor's, in post-apocalypse, if you're growing turnips and your neighbor is growing corn, right? They have something you either do it yourself, or you find a nice way of giving them turnips for their corn, and you figure out so both of you are happy, or at least both of you are sad. That's just negotiation 101. Now, so when you say, okay, well, we have lumber in the United States and it's $10, and somebody can go to Canada and get the same lumber for $2. Well, obviously Canada's going to get that business. And then we look at our lumber industry and saying, are we just overpriced? And it's like, no, we have to do it this way. So those policymakers have to figure out what's making lumber at a disadvantage to Canadian lumber, and either fix the policy, make it so the regulations aren't so much, or the taxation's not so much, or the labor costs are not so much, or you have to say, all right, we're putting a $9 tariff on Canada and making Canadian lumber $10. And if I have to wait 2 weeks to get it from Canada, or I can get it by Wednesday from North Carolina or wherever the lumber's coming from, then now North Carolina has the advantage, not on cost, but on that. So given a long enough time, it is always better to keep your business local in here in the United States.
Yeah.
But in the short term, when somebody's saying, oh, I went to go get eggs and now they're $953 a dozen, right? You can't give them like be patient until local producers start creating eggs and they get into distribution and they end up on the shelves. And yes, they're going to be more expensive, but sorry for your luck. All right. So where should tariff income go to? Now, number one would be direct to consumer, right? If I had a statistician and it said the American consumer is now paying, $400 per month more for things that they have to buy in the United States now, I send out a check to all consumers, and now $400 comes in. So when they buy the eggs, they're made whole, right? Things are exactly where they were before. It just happened that the tariff subsidy filled in the increased cost on the consumer end. So that would be a good, as long as the stats were right, and I trusted the people who are making that up, that would be a 1-for-1. Then direct to provider, right? So if soybeans need help where they can't produce, they had a big loss, right? Yeah. And you prop up an industry and give them a chance to retool and buy new land and buy new equipment to say, I was able to sell soybeans before, and now that game has ended. The government just abruptly pulled the plug on something that I was making money at. I go to the marketplace and find we really need corn, so I'm going to change my field over to corn. But hey, Mr. Government, I need some time to be able to pull that off. Give me a 6 months of subsidy where I'm not going to lose money and go out of business. I'm going to stay afloat, but it's only 6 months I'm going to need it until I start growing corn again. That would be a good secondary spend of money. Giving it in a way where it just becomes another social program. You never get rid of those. They're what's a venereal disease that you never get rid of? Is that like
herpes?
Herpes. So once you get social program herpes, it never goes away, because you can never pull the help away, because you create, the goal with Democrats is to create dependencies. Once they become dependencies, they are there forever. So you better get used to them. Where a farm subsidy that I do for 6 months to get them through a period that I created as the government makes sense to me. A one-time check to a consumer so they can buy eggs until the marketplace responds to it, that makes sense to me. But social programs, no, long dissertation on a simple question.
Well, no, and I like that. And one of the things I was reading too when I was reading about this is, this was, I don't even know the source that wrote it, but it said, we've got to keep in mind that this, meaning WIC, is meant to be temporary. And then my first thought was like, but is it when people use it? Do you think they're in the mindset that it's temporary, number one? And then number two, you had said, well, you give it directly to the consumer. They're made whole. They use it to purchase those items that have now increased in cost. And do we even do that? I mean, I saw back when we were dealing with COVID and the Biden administration sent all kinds of money out to everyone to help out. I watched people buy like a motorcycle that then got repoed, a vacation or something when you can't really go anywhere. You're kind of blowing it. Like, can we trust consumers to use the money
It doesn't matter.
wisely?
It doesn't matter. It's a transaction where you took a statistic and made you whole. What you do with it, I don't give two shits about.
Yeah, you can't really complain.
As long as we have sort of like, you know, when you have the High Wire Act and you have the safety net below them,
yeah,
right? They're not supposed to be on the safety net. The safety net is supposed to be there only if everything else goes wrong. If you have everybody on the safety net, it's not a circus anymore. It's just a bunch of people who live on the safety net, and nobody wants to watch that. There's too much human potential to have everybody in peril. But I blame the Democrats because they thrive when you have more people in peril. So they want more people on the safety net so they can tell them they're victims. They can rescue them, tell them that they have no other choice. And then they never develop the instincts of survival. They just become dependent on the system. And Democrats require that to be elected perpetually.
Yeah, because then ultimately when the safety net is now failing and it has to be taken away, you're the bad guy.
Hey,
I can't believe you took away the safety net.
And that's what you said, where is if WIC was supposed to be a temporary thing, I know what the profile of a temporary thing looks like. You know what it means? It means I'm going to give you 2 checks and then there's no such thing as a third one. That's temporary. If you have on WIC, on a social program forever, that's not it's mathematically not a temporary thing, because if the default is you're on forever and it's only the exception that don't need it anymore or don't want it anymore, right? Then it is a perpetual program.
Yeah.
So that leads us into the government shutdown and the videos of people complaining about their SNAP and their EBT and their social program checks are not going to come. So you have lots of people who are dependents on the system. And they, being in the 22nd day of the government shutdown, will no longer get food for them, their children, their family, whole communities, whole swaths of millions of people who use that money to feed themselves and survive to the next day is going away. And it's going to be a thing we're going to be talking about for the next couple weeks.
In this discussion, are we looking at why are so many needing this?
That it's rhetorical. Everybody knows. I mean, yes, okay, you can have like an academic debate of why we push so many people into systems so that we can enslave them and keep control of them and keep them voting in our direction. But we already know that. Like,
yeah,
you and I want everybody to be prosperous enough, make good decisions, not buy TVs and motorcycles, but buy things that, you know, create more advantage in the future. But human nature is going to say if you get a bunch of dependents, the more bad decisions they make, right, the more they're going to need you and more they're going to vote for you. So that math is solid already. So the mean person, the parent in this discussion, right, is going to have hard truths that cause pain to people.
Yeah. But then what do you do? Like, here's the hard truth. This was meant to be temporary, and you're going to have to figure out a way to get off of this. And they're going to be like, no, I don't buy that, and I'll just vote for the person that won't take it from me.
Well, politically, can you survive that, though? If you've got 1 million people who now are mad at you because you took away their, you know, free stuff, you got the sugar baby, right?
Yeah.
That no longer, right, is getting their free ride and free benefits and whatever. You've got to. It's every democracy or republic that has a group of people that are so desperate that they are now you're threatening their survival and everything that they're used to. When those people rise up, they threaten, right, the civility that we agree that we should have. So if today I said you're going to go a month without eating, right, on day 29, you're willing to put up, you know, some fists.
Probably day 2.
Day 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Day 2.
Day 2, I'm putting up some fists. I'm not doing this.
Right. Well, the rest of us who don't need those benefits are easy to judge that, you know, hey, go get a job, right? That's easy. I got your answer, right? Go get a job, pay your own way, get off of those benefits anyway. They were dangerous for have the government extend it when they can leverage you with it and use it to control you. Don't do that anymore, right? It's easy to say that.
Yeah.
But when you're the person who's already created a life that built that into their budget, that's just going to be something they're going to get from now on, and now that's threatened, that is a dangerous contingent.
then I always think about this idea of the two sides tend to argue a lot over money we send abroad, money we send for a program in whatever country. And to that, I tend to always start saying, well, why are we even looking at doing that when we have thousands of people here that are relying on us for food, or homeless vets or whatever? Like, we still have that problem. So why are we even arguing over sending money anywhere? Does the United States have an obligation in any way to fund programs or anything outside of our own country?
Oh yeah, if you're going to play on the geopolitical scale, like you have to deal with other countries to be able to get concessions, to be able to work treaties and tariffs and everything else. You have a budget to be able to do it. So it's almost like you can make that argument if you're looking someone in public, right?
Mhm.
So you have I'm going to use an example of someone, and let's just say you have a daughter, right?
Mhm.
And you fundraise to get your daughter to do these things. Like, we need money for, dance or football or whatever. And then you go on vacation, right?
Yeah.
You could make the argument that you just said you didn't have enough money to buy your own damn daughter the stuff they need to do their stuff, but you went to freaking Cedar Point. And in that person's mind, they're like, no, these are two different departments. My budget for my kids' experiences for doing extracurriculars is different than everybody needs to go on vacation, right?
Mhm.
So you can write those things, and from a strictly math standpoint, all things are equal. You do all the important things first, and if you don't have time to be able to go to Cedar Point because you have to buy, a uniform for a soccer league, then that's your responsibility, not everybody else's. So, but in that example, if you did that, let's just say we didn't do anything on the international scale, right? We just paid our own things and we didn't spend a dime outside of that. In a couple of years, when we don't have any kind of allies to, go against our enemies, and we don't have any trade partners and whatever, you're going to be like, oh, we paid for our own stuff, but we don't have X, Y, Z, and you'd have to make that very complicated argument. So I agree with it and disagree with it at the same time.
Yeah. Would you say that there is a necessity in sending money abroad for certain causes, issues, whatever, but that we have wildly overstepped that?
Yes, wildly.
And then that's kind of where the fighting comes in is yes, I absolutely can see that some money needs to be spent outside of this country and outside of our own people, almost like, probably a bad way to phrase it, but almost like cost of doing business in a way,
That's exactly right.
And so we've got to keep those relationships alive.
Yeah, if you believe that it's a function of our government to do those things, and we have to spend money with Argentinian beef, right, at the expense of domestic, because you can say those two things and they can both be right, but they're in total conflict with one another.
Yeah. So then that's kind of where you need to sort of do the whole, like what Elon Musk attempted to do is, okay, well, what's not necessary? What is just overspending or ridiculous or just like a power play or whatever? Scale that back, get that money in. But again, then you still have that power struggle of one side making it look like you're doing something bad because they needed that as leverage.
But again, it's just an argument. If you had your marketing team and your sales team in the same room, both are going to have different priorities. The sales team is going to spend money to get new customers, and the sales team is going to end up selling product, and the marketing team is to get new customers, right? Well, let's just say I spend more on something when you needed something. You're going to take, or you feel like you needed something, you're going to take exception to the fact that that money could have been better spent in my department rather than yours. And that is the push and pull of what politics are. But to your original point, do they go too far? Yes. Government will always go too far. They'll try to pull every dollar from you. And there has to be a pairing, right? You have to actually go in the field with your shears and on a regular basis, build in cutting on a regular basis. As it blooms, you have to cut it back in order to make it stay small. If you can't tell me where something has a sunset, or when death and pairing is part of the formula, it will always grow too big, get out of your control. And so, like, one of my points last week was that we have a co-equal branches of government, right? And we believe the fact that each one of the branches should be able to always keep the other branches in check. And in my lifetime, it's always been adding powers to one, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that new powers get added to the other to keep those balances in check. Do you know we can go the opposite direction and we can remove powers, right, to do the exact same thing? So, like, let's just say the executive was overstepping their bounds and they were making calls in departments that was never in the spirit of giving those powers. So we could either give the legislature more control to keep them in check, or just remove the executive powers that are causing the imbalance, right? Mm-hmm. And both of them are valuable and intelligent. Are politicians ever going to say, we need less power?
No.
Are departments ever going to say, we need less money?
No.
So the only people that feel that way are the individuals that are supposed to have a bigger say than the politicians. And now we're skewed where the government actually has more control and power over more than we do. And so they're always going to vote themselves more excess and more excess.
Yeah, it was so funny. I was just saying to someone this morning, like, it's so interesting that there's all these protests, the no kings against one person. And it's like, do you not realize that things like endless power, no term limit, you just get to do whatever you want to do for however long you want to do it? We have that, and the people voting for that are those people. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I think you should give up your pay during the shutdown. Let's vote on it. No. And then, hey, I think maybe you should not just endlessly be in this position, that maybe there's a cutoff for this job. Let's vote on it. No. Like, the people that need to actually have those limitations are the ones voting on it, and they're not going to vote for that.
They will never. They will never go along with that. But again, I'm very thankful, if nothing else, for the Trump administration for being a disruptor in that, perpetual expansion of the money that we spend, and we're still spending it. We just crested $38 trillion in debt. Okay. And so, but the attitude is now, let's just say your budget was growing at 10%. Right? So you were going to go more in the red by 10%. If you cut that back and you only grew in the red by 5%, is that a win as far as you're concerned?
You wanted to grow by 10, but you did 5?
It's not good, but it's less bad.
I guess if it's less bad.
Less bad.
It's not what you wanted, but it's less bad.
Yeah, you'd have to make the argument that it's impossible to get to good. So if let's just say the legislature said, all right, we're serious now, we're only going to spend what we make. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect a quarter in revenue, and then we're going to take what we collected and earmark what we've collected, like you and I do, right? So we don't like spend it and then see how much we collected and said, oh, not enough, let's print some more money, right? So they could get serious in that way, which would, the markets would love that. The value of the dollar would love that. Inflation would love that. Literally every person would love that, except for the people who were able to write checks forever, not having any restraint based on I'm spending revenue versus I'm spending IOUs and bonds and promises.
Credit,
right?
Yeah.
Some sane person is going to have to come along, and they're going to have to be able to convince everyone else that says, I know all of you are spending this money on your favorite projects, but let's not do that anymore, right? They'll
be squashed.
100%.
You can't be a sane person with a decent idea that makes sense. You can't do that.
Yeah, but the public is captured because if you thought that your team was going to be hampered in the same way that the opposition, we can't have that. So it's only things that we can do hurt the other side, but don't hurt our side at all. So if I was like, let's release the Epstein files, everybody can say, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Let me tell you who's going to be implicated. 50% Republicans and 50% Democrats are going to go down. Oh, hold on. Is there any way we could just implicate the Democrats right now and just make sure they get outed. And when they get in power, then they can implicate the other people if they want. But let's make sure they're not in power anymore so none of our team goes down.
Yeah. Yeah. Notice how anything that could have been a major shifter, like boat rocker for the system as a whole, just dies.
You find that a little weird that when the Department of Justice goes after people who did really bad stuff, that they're pretty much all in the camp of the Democrats. Like if I expect the DOJ that was blind, right? And they were like, hey, we got to get rid of the swamp. And no swamp creatures from the right exist or were targeted or were gone after. It's this theme of these are political persecutions. All you have to do to make it just pursuing justice is that it's all justice. So the Department of Justice would have came across the case and not cared whether or not they were a Democrat or Republican. They pursued them with equal, vigor.
Yeah.
Just because they believed in justice, not political persecution.
Do you think we'll ever have
No, we will not.
Ever.
Ever. Our current system, unless you limit government to the point where we don't pay attention to it at all, is the only time when it's so unnotable, right?
Yeah.
Is the only time that stuff can happen. Because
how does that happen?
You don't. It's not. It's
impossible.
There's no call for it. So my cynicism is grounded in the fact that we don't like, I use the analogy of the volcano, right?
Uh-huh.
So you have a volcano, and for those of you who have never heard this analogy before, here it goes. You have a volcano, you have two choices, right?
Uh-huh.
You can either have every 100 years that it blows up and kills everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can manufacture little blow-ups every 10 years and only 10% of the people die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are your two choices, and that's the political deal. Either you do through attrition where everybody has the stomach for doing it, and if you're in the era where you get to decide that 10% of your people die, or you can kick it down the road where the 100% of the people who die are not your people. That's where you're at. And
so do you see sort of that little release valve as being like, hey, things are going to get expensive for a little bit?
And I'm going to feel the pain and you're going to feel the pain, but we're willing to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good of all humanity.
Years from now, this will make sense again and run better.
Yes, trust me.
Or we don't. We continue to just get everything cheap.
And everybody dies.
And then
what is more likely if the volcano down the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you trust that your leadership would choose to off the 10% of the people and experience the explosion now rather than making the 100-year from now people experience the total devastation?
I feel like there's a couple that would do that. I feel like there's a couple that have come with ideas that is like, we got to feel a little hurt now for the greater good. But the majority is like,
well, the point is there wouldn't be enough will for it to actually happen. You might get people to say that it's a smart thing to be able to, make your sacrifice in your era rather than kicking it down to someone who's not you. But my point is it would never happen in a million years. It wouldn't. So that's what, so we all see it. We see the car crash happening in slow motion,
mm-hmm.
and you can have faith that the people around you are going to do nothing to be able to stop it. Nothing. That's why it ends up in the destruction and devastation and the rebuilding, because that's what we do. And that's just a guarantee. I'll write it on an envelope and say that's where we'll be.
When the destruction finally does come to a head and explode, whoever is the administration at that time is blamed for destruction.
Exactly. Not the people who decided not to do anything about it. And that's why with these budgets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these continuing resolutions. And so you have legislators takes more vacations than anybody on the planet. They're handsomely paid, right?
Yeah.
And so they should be working 8-hour days, 290 days a year is the way that I feel, as well as their pay. And they should be, you familiar with this whole continuing resolution thing?
Not really.
All right. So their job is to take the two sides together and figure out what the budget's going to be, include both parties and whatever. When they can't get that done, they have to do a continuing resolution, which basically picks up the last agreed upon budget and buys them more time. Okay.
Okay.
So
that sounds
the one that
familiar.
was being offered by the Republicans right now, get them through November into December. All right. So you, if you're going to vote for the continuing resolution, have to agree that it was just a matter of time that worked against them. Right. If they'd have just had another 2 months, they would have totally,
we
hammered out that deal.
And,
Or you could be like me and saying in 2 months, you're going to be in the exact same position and have to say, oh, now we can't let's do another continuing resolution. Let's do another one because time is what was working against us.
Yeah.
Well, the math is that you can't agree on anything. You're going to go back to the table. You're going to disagree on anything. You're going to get to December and you're going to say, oh, we need another continuing resolution because time was really the only thing, not the political disagreement was the problem.
Yeah, like you had to have faith in the fact that we will eventually all come to an agreement and it'll work out.
When the reality is that neither party holds enough leverage to get their way. So they're going to kick it down the road until somebody has enough leverage to be able to force their ideals on the other party because you don't know how to concede. You don't know how to do negotiations and whatever. So if you think, okay, what's going to be different politically in November? The Senate's going to be the same. The House is going to be the same. The executive is going to be the same. The economy is going to be the same. So there's literally nothing that is going to change what is happening now. But this is the world of politics. This is what prism things are put through in order to figure out what it is that they're going to do. It's not operating like you and I operate our households. It's operating from a complete corrupt value system.
And meanwhile, while there's all the BS and while there's all the spinning of their wheels, the people actually making the decisions and meeting and causing this change are completely unaffected.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yeah, but it wouldn't matter. I know a lot of people said if they weren't receiving a paycheck, if you think that the people in our government make their living off of their paycheck, you are mistaken.
Yeah, they've
Completely.
got all kinds of other stuff with money coming in.
They are fine. And the government will continue. And that feels good because you think you're zinging them, right? You're not going to collect the paycheck. But I can guarantee you if they voted that would you feel better about it, but it would change absolutely nothing. And it distracts us from the real problem is that we have, leadership and people who are supposedly governing us that are inept at their job. Right? Mm-hmm. They are not going in there as skilled people that negotiate the best outcome for the people. They are completely leverage based who extort people, right? And if you think the no kings and the EBT and the government shutdown, right? If those aren't just leverage points where they're trying to make it into something so they can get their way, that's all there is to it. It's a 15-year-old's game.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. This is a game. They're all just playing an endless game.
Yes. That's their job.
Well, there's no end.
And that's why I say, like, if government was small and the TV didn't cover them and you didn't hear anything out of them, there was be no performative in theatrics. Like if you go to your state house and watch them go through something where nobody's watching and they're not writing articles about it and it's boring as can be, you watch both sides come together because they're not going to be made into a hero if they punch the other side in the face. And so less theatrics happen there.
Yeah, it is. We are in this time with that. It is so, I don't know, slippery maybe. We all want transparency and we all want to be able to see what's going on. And we want cameras in all these different meeting rooms. But at the same time, then it almost feels like it's stifling progress. Like nothing's going to get done. Nothing's going to be taken seriously.
We were wrong. We were.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we don't need
but
all
it
the
felt right.
transparency.
It felt right. Let's just say that you had an era where, the church and the monks and the government controlled the free access of information. And so all the people that were kept dumb and on their little, field where they're growing corn and whatever, like if I just had that information that they're keeping from me, I would be better than I am before. So we're like, okay, let's just give information to everyone. Right. Mm-hmm. And then everybody will just trade in their farm and they'll become prosperous like everybody else. Me, I'm like, there's more to it. Not everybody should have free access of information. some people don't have the intellect or the responsibility or the disciplines to be able to handle transparency and information. So let's just figure out who needs the information, who could be made prosperous by giving them the resource. But let's not make it free, because then you just commoditize something that should be special and sacred, and you give it to everybody thinking that you have a public school, right? And only 5% of society are allowed to go into public school. So people have to work really hard to get into public school. And we're like, hey, let's just make public school everybody. So then you let everybody go into public school, and if 80% of the people who have no business being there whatsoever, they dumb everything down for everybody else. They make everything take longer than it should, right? And they ruin it for the smart people, because you've dumbed it down to a point where you can't even innovate in education because it's now a commodity that is valueless.
So what do you do with those dumb people?
They go back to the farm, right? And survive, like figure out. And that's the thing, like that kind of friction and that kind of hard is what crafts people to become better, because it sucks and it needs to suck for a period of time. So you figure out you don't want it to suck. And as long as there's no systemic opposition to you getting into something else, right?
Yeah.
If I was like, hey, here's the rules, right? And all you got to do is do the rules. And, if I said, wait to have babies until you're over 18, graduate from high school, and get a job, any job, and I can give you a 90% chance that you're going to be prosperous. If I just told you those rules and you're like, all right, I did it. Statistically, you were freaking right, because that's just math.
So put the emphasis on making good choices, doing good work, following the steps that lead to success. And instead of that, we just went, everybody will just get on the same level.
You did the exact opposite of what you should have done. Don't reduce the value of the thing, right? Give it the most value by people who study statistics. Just give me the information on what the statistics are. So if I said, if you drive, or if you don't drive in the middle of the night, you reduce your chance of an accident by 50%. Right now, you can decide that you're going to drive at night or not. You can do it, free will, right? But you at least have the information, and the information doesn't change because of how you feel about it. If I say you do these 3 things, then you'll have a 90% chance of prosperity. If you buy these things, you have a 90% of prosperity. Give me the information, and then free will can say whether or not I feel like doing those things or not. And if I do those things, I have a real argument that if I did those things and it didn't work how you said, then we craft on the statistics. And as long as they were true, maybe I was in the 10% that got dealt a bad hand, and it doesn't work out for me like you said it would. Fine. All right. But you're going to deal with far less people in that gray area than right now, where you just commoditized everything that was valuable and tell the 50% of the population that the system's working against you. Maybe you only have 10% of the population that can't seem to figure it out because of the bad choices that they make. That's far less than 50% of the population who are ignorant, but not because there's a lack of data out there.
In fact, I've seen people say, well, I've gotten this benefit from not doing all the right things. And if I start doing all the right things, I lose
systemic flaw. And really, as hard as it is to hear that those people need to be made uncomfortable, stop relying on people who obviously are inept and can't come through for you. So right now, the EBT and the WIC, right? You know who's in an advantaged position right now?
Who?
The Catholic Church. So you've got millions of people who are about to lose their food benefits, right? So you put on a campaign, come off of some of that Catholic money, put it in the bank and get ready to spend it. And I want you to compete for those people's, their minds and their hearts, for the Catholic Church, and say, the government, you trusted them and they competed against us and kicked us out of every place. So F you, government, it's our time now. So here's what I'm going to do. You come into church and you go through some classes about morality and teachings of the Bible. And guess what? Every month, I'm going to make sure you got food on your plate. And it's not going to be in a card. We have a big pantry here that we came off this Catholic money and built huge buildings, huge monuments of feeding the poor and charity. You come in, you get your heart filled with the teachings of God, and you've got plates of food as long as the eye can see. And you could stay here forever. As long as you keep filling your heart with God's message, you get food to eat. I would do that tomorrow. I'm the bishop. I'm the pope. I'm saying government's at a disadvantage right now. They're showing the people that they're unreliable and undisciplined and not able to come through for people. But us, we got it all. And we can add tons of people to our pews. But all we have to do is what Jesus said anyhow, right? The teachings say anyhow. It's our time. And this is their Super Bowl. If they would do that, then religion now is notable. And right now, religion is not notable.
So you say the Catholic Church in particular, because they're the ones with more money.
Yeah, capable. It's capable. Second in line with who has the most money. I'm going to say governments and Catholic Church are real close.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You think they'll do that? Why wouldn't they, I guess? Why wouldn't they?
The Catholic Church, and I'm going to stop picking on Catholic Church and say just religions in general are apathetic. They're transactional at this point where they're trying to, win people over with the same theater that government is, paying attention, loud music, spectacles, and whatever. And I know this is not all. This is a sweeping statement, but they need to get out in the community and let people feel them without, it's not an induction ceremony. It's like people saying, here's $1,000, Kelin. I want you to go in the community to make someone's life better. And then you have all these people, their sole obligation is to go out and look for people who they can personally affect, right? Personally make their life better. And if you've got billions of people that get $1,000 in their pocket from the church to go out there and influence people's lives, you have something that is way more capable and noble than government.
Disciples.
100%. This is their super. I'm telling you, if they miss this opportunity, they're worthless.
That's true.
Tell them. Somebody call who has more context, because religious people don't like me for some reason because I shit talk everybody, and they're one of them. But if you've got an inline,
I don't know if you shit talk religious people. Do you?
I do. Yes, because they're doing it all wrong. I disagree with how it's being done because it became more about the institutions than the teachings. If you don't think that, we worked with people in rehab, right? If you don't think the word of God gave someone who was at the worst time in their life at least some hope that there was something bigger than themselves and flipped the switch in their brain to change everything versus the sciences and the chemicals and the lectures with them, I watch the word of God do something more than those things every single time. In a group of, I would say, 50 people, to watch the 50% that were just opposed to the word of God portion of it and how much they revisited the same decisions they make versus the people who just drilled themselves into something that was outside themselves and watched like the statistics on who was better off. I saw it happen in real time.
Do you think there's any potential there for fighting among the religions themselves? And what I mean by that is, for example, I know someone that grew up Catholic, went to Catholic church, raised kids that way, and have now really started to step back. They don't like it. They don't agree with some things. One in particular was like, and I've never been a part of the Catholic religion, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But she had said that, for example, there was a couple that got divorced, and the woman was no longer allowed to take communion because she's divorced. And you had to go through all kinds of different steps or classes or whatnot in order to sort of regain the privilege of taking communion. And based off of what I've always sort of taken from spiritual teachings, I said, that sort of sounds like the opposite of what Jesus would do. Like,
this is just boredom, though.
But you could see how what one set of religious followings, teachings, whatever, could differ from what someone else's teaching, following. Does that not sort of then get us right back in that almost fighting, clashing mindset?
They're bored. Okay, so if there was a grave threat in the United States and there were millions of people that were starving, and I used my Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays when people show up, and I gave them $1,000 and went out to help people, they would spend all their time trying to figure out how to help people. They would be talking about song lists and who gets to take communion and whatever. They'd be so busy helping people, they would never get to the point where saying, well, there's some inconsistencies in the teaching in Job.
So
and
you're saying kind of keep them busy being
They're-
out doing work.
they're
rather than
inactive and they're worrying about things that don't effing matter. So if you showed up and they didn't have their song list or song set just right, or they sang off key, or somebody was sitting in a different pew, this is bored people convenience items instead of saying, oh, you're here, we're wasting time while you're still here, here's $1,000, get your ass out there and go help some people. They don't have to worry about pews and songs and lighting and everything else.
But there are some religions that think you do. You do have to worry about that. That the songs that are sung in the church have meaning.
That's because they're not doing anything useful at this point. They're worried about the institutional tradition of what you do when you're there, and they're not being active participants, and they're not doing anything. So of course, whenever we're idle, right, we really, in a let's just take your day yesterday. Let's just say apocalypse happens and now you're in survival mode, right? Are you worried about the same things when you're in apocalypse mode that you did the other day, your bills and what's happening politically and your friends and people? No, you have you've been charged with something different, which is survival. So you have time to think about that other stuff. If you ever get bored again and there's no apocalypse, you'll go back into the regimens that got you into those thinking important things are not really important again. Sure, we'll get there if we have to. But when you're busy, those things don't even freaking matter anymore. That's why it's the Super Bowl.
We've got a bunch of comments.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right. So Chicken says, so we offer aid to these impoverished groups to avoid them being offered aid by our enemy. Yeah, that could be part of geopolitics, is that we're winning over allies by blackmail, bribery, special favors, and whatever. It's the game that geopolitical politics plays, and just a reality. And do I agree with it? No, I don't agree with it. Would I be able to tolerate it if somebody convinced me that it was necessary to keep people safe? So trade off a little bit of funds to be able to keep someone from crashing planes into a building. I'm interested. Tell me more.
Someone said the majority of Snap and Wix users work. It is income based. That's Julie.
There should not be charity done through government. Charity, a whole. So regardless of how it's fine, this isn't an attrition talk. This isn't, Medicare needs a little bit of grafting in order to be functional, right? Government should not be in the business of giving things to people, period. If it's charity, right, it should be done through people who are good at doing charity. So if they're picking an organization that has a good throughput. So what would you consider a good throughput for charity? If you give $100 to a charity, if I measure it and find out how much money gets down to the recipient of that, what would be a good throughput?
I feel like it needs to be at least half, if not more.
Okay, so now the government's charged with finding charities that have a throughput of better than 50% on there. So they have administrative costs and marketing costs and regular business costs, but they make sure that 50% of everything that they gets down to an individual. What do you think the percentage is that when you give $100 to government, like USAID, when you segment out and find out what the throughput, what ends up making it to a good charitable cause, do you think they're above or below 50%?
Probably
so if they were apply the filter to themselves, then they would not give money to them, which means that they would not be giving money to themselves. So just set a standard for what the net gain is by giving something away, whether it be outside or inside. And if the government gets above 50, the government can do it. But once they're audited and find that they're not good at doing charity, their whole thing is they wrap a good thing in, right, to get money or influence or corruption or whatever, then they shouldn't be in that business. So, and fine, Snap people, Wix people, they follow some protocols. But in the end, if it's a government function, it's probably done so badly, right, that those little benefits or those little help that you're getting pales into the harm that it's doing by enslaving people to a system that's there to keep them dependent on it, period.
So it's like, oh, I'm working, but I don't make enough, so you should be giving me this, but you're getting it from a source that does not have it themselves and has no out. or plan to get better.
Yeah, that should be an indictment on WIC, where how are you enslaving people into a perpetual cycle of not, like, let's just say your work requirements are that you do part-time work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't make over $19,000 or you'll lose your benefits. So what's going to get you to go say, I'm going to go make 25,000, lose all of my benefits? You're stuck there effing forever. So yes, there are people are putting, because there was a little requirement on there, it feels a little bit better that it's not just a free ride, but still it's broken math and it keeps people enslaved in the system forever.
Oh yeah. And there are those people that they will simply say, I cannot go work. I cannot do this because I will lose this benefit. And it's easier for me to just have this than to go do that.
Put it in the hands of people who can help change those people, the decision. And it's hard to say, like when I picture the church, and I've been around this a couple of times where people would walk through the door and say, I need groceries, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what the church did? They didn't just give them a card and go buy groceries. They had a discussion. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell me about the situation. Tell me about your decisions. Tell me about your circumstance. Sometimes you got to the circumstance and said, this person just experienced a layoff or whatever. And they gave them a card and they gave them, say, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you this card, but I don't want to have to give you this card forever. So let me help you in your decision-making, in your plot. And so if you're like, I want the benefit, but I don't want people telling me what to do, right? Then you go somewhere else. And that's where the government were like, come to us. We won't tell you what to do at all. We'll just give you free shit. And that's what those people want, is they want the benefit without the responsibility of what gets you that benefit. So we've devalued charity. Do you think one recipient of WIC opens that check and says, man, I really appreciate that government. I appreciate every taxpayer that, parts with their tax money so I could have this? Or it's like, I didn't get it. I better get it. How come I didn't get it yet?
Yeah.
And again, sweeping generalities, but you can see the mentality that if all of us have had kids and watched kids not know the connection between a free thing until they have to start paying for it on their own, like not watching Netflix and paying the light bill and whatever. They thought those things were invisible until they get to the point where, oh, you mean I got to go here and pay money. This? Then it becomes
you see what it takes
real.
To get the money.
But there will be a whole lot of people that played by the rules the way that they were. The rules sucked and they got sucked into it. It's not their fault. They believed in the government protocol. And now you're going to abruptly remove that. So there has to be somebody to reteach the rules that there's no such thing as free. It has to be painful in order for you not want it anymore. And I would say the church is probably my best bet for someone willing to do real talk and not because, the church doesn't have infinite. It can't print its own money. So it has to be a little bit defensive about how much it gives out and to whom. And there has to be audits and benchmarks to make sure that people keep getting what they're being given.
Yeah. One of my pastors was just telling us recently that they at one point worked in this area within the church that took those calls. Hey, I can't pay my power bill this month. I'm really struggling. Okay, well, let's take a look at it. What's going on? And then again, they don't hand the money to them. They take the bill and they pay the bill. And then they said, if the very next month, the exact same person's calling for the exact same bill, they're like, we just paid this for you. You should have been good. How are we back here?
Yep.
Let's have a conversation. We're going to need to talk about budgeting and bills and things of that nature, because we're not just call and pay this bill for me every month.
Right. Those strings that you create make that person more healthy. And even if they don't want to be healthy, if they want the thing, they will begrudgingly accept your health, right? Against their will, because they know they need the thing. Where when it's the government, it's just free. You don't have to do anything to better yourself. You can stay in that position forever and keep voting for me. And that's all they really need. That's why government should be nowhere near charity. And again, like it flips switches in your brain when you're personally involved. When I have to talk to somebody who's really in a bad position and I get to hear their story, I can truly give them advice where I feel like I made an impact on them, and I can give them advice so that they don't end up here, versus the government that wants you to stay there. It's like, hey, here's the deal. You have 5 kids. And that's too many for you. You can barely handle the 4. Now you have a 5th. If you have a 6th, I'm going to give you $500 more, right? So I'm incentivizing exactly what I would be. I would give you advice. Look, let's back off the sex thing for a while. You're a little bored. You're not doing anything. So the best thing is eating and having sex, right? It's totally a primitive expression of your desires.
Yeah.
But let's get you busy so that you're not in positions that you're, going after those two things that are definitely working against you. You're eating too much and you're getting fat, becoming unhealthier, and you're having sex a lot. So you're having more kids. This does not have a good end for you.
Yeah. Maybe find another hobby.
That's exactly right.
Job.
And I have some suggestions for you. Why don't you come down to the church and help some people? Why don't you give back a little bit with some of this time? Here's what, bring you and your kids down to the church. We'll get your kids involved in some lessons. We'll bring some people down here so they can get, so we don't create another generation are going to see what you modeled after them and create more of this for the next generation.
Yeah.
And then we'll teach you, right, and get you involved in some cleaning the offices and setting up some electronics and, doing something that makes an 8-hour day go by. Your kids are healthy. They're getting good food down in our, down in the rectory down there. And now you get through the end of the day and say, hey, you know what? Since I was busy all day, I didn't have time to make poor decisions.
Well, and you almost need to somehow encourage pride, I guess, to come back, encourage satisfaction from
absolutely.
Having a purpose. I know I have a family member who works in HR and told me one time they had an employee say, I need to hurry up and have another kid so I don't lose my benefits.
Yes.
And it's like, they don't care. They don't care that they could stop working and do something the hard way and purposely make bad decisions to get this sort of free money and free benefits. Where's the pride in I worked hard, I did something, I accomplished, I made good choices, I did whatever, we
don't have that luxury.
Don't have the luxury.
You don't have the luxury. Think about, let's just say you made a sacrifice for the sake of pride. So you basically said, you know what? I'm not taking these SNAP benefits. Upside of not taking the SNAP benefits, you could say, I didn't take the SNAP benefits. Downside is that your family doesn't eat and things get considerably worse for you.
And I want to be clear. I don't mean pride as in you've heard people say oh, they're too proud to accept help. That's not what I mean. I mean, you feel good knowing you're doing your best, you're working hard. You may need some help along the way, but ideally your mentality is that you're going to do everything you can to make the best decisions and the best choices and work as hard as you can. That mindset.
But it's not, it would, okay, that's predicated on there being virtues that are accepted.
Yeah.
Right. You can be proud in something because you have principles that you're supporting. We've demonized virtues, right? Your vices are what your identity is. If I say somebody's responsible for their actions, right? Right. You should agree with me that, I did some really dumb things. If you can't get somebody to agree that their behaviors are what caused all of their peril, right? You can't have pride in those because you're in an argument state.
Yeah. I heard somebody one time, they were mad because a family member was not able to watch their child because that family member had to go to work. And I can't believe this person. And they keep screwing me over. And I'm like, it's not their kid. They didn't make that decision. They're going to work and it's your responsibility, but you're mad at them for not bailing you out.
Yeah. That's the sugar baby mentality.
Yeah.
But anyway, and again, that's why it's connected in with where I think the church's role. If virtues were taught and you knew what they were and you felt that they were important, the Bible is probably the best virtue testing tool that we have. You might make a couple of generations that actually know to be considerate to other people and love other people as individual, sort of attitudes towards people that you're next to. If we're in a selfish phase where everybody's a narcissist and they're only looking out for them, it's not that even you're not concerned for those people. It's a total blind spot where you don't even know looking out for other people is a thing, because in your world, you're competing against those. And if you don't defend yourself, right, You lose and they win. And you have a victim culture that reinforces that and says, you can't even help it. They're all going to get you. And you better look out for number one, because if you don't, you're going to get decimated. The church's influence, really, they didn't fight very hard to stay relevant in our culture. And I blame them a lot for not putting up a bigger fight and not saying, they got so comfortable in their institutions and they had enough support where they didn't have to fight to be relevant. They were more afraid of, people leaving their pews because they took on a cause or whatever. They played it safe and they lost this game. The government squashed you because they had way better benefits. With no,
you think they catered to those people
100%
are bored sitting there?
Exactly.
Gave them
more, like in school, it would be analogous to playing a movie about what you're talking about, right? It's mailing it in, it's keeping someone engaged, but it's completely void of why you're supposed to be there in the first place. And they got really used to being irrelevant every freaking Sunday.
So these comments were sort of back on earlier topics. Carter says, King Schumer, 44 years, Mitch McConnell, 40 years. They are the kings.
As a great argument for term limits that will never happen.
Army J says, yeah, we need to find a solution soon or we're doomed, it seems. And I don't think transparency is the issue. The issue is we have no way to hold them really accountable for their actions.
Because we gave government too much influence and made it too big where they're calling the shots. And if you really had the people that would be able, if they were afraid of us, right? And every decision was going to be condemned by people and people were just working off of noble principles, then they would do nothing and they would be small. And the people would take it upon themselves to solve their own problems. You're not going to have solutions that come out of government. So they're, get that out of your head that somehow, the people, are, we're just observers here. We're just passengers on this bed. And everybody's like, come on, government, save me from this, right? It's not going to come out of government. The only thing we can do is squash the government so they stop competing with individuals, right? To do the right thing individually for people. So if you had a billion people, so you going out with $1,000 and helping one person, you're like, oh, the government could have helped 1 million people. I only helped one, right? But in a group of 1 billion Catholics that all go out, you can help 1 billion people, right? If every one of you decided to take one person and change one life, you'd have 1 billion people affected, and you wouldn't be caught in that trap. You'd have to make the same judgment the next time and save another billion people the next Sunday that they show up.
It's interesting. Just last Saturday, I was at a conference about making disciples. And there's some interesting little...
It's been the answer all along and everybody knows it, but we're so lazy. We would rather outsource what our responsibilities as good people up to a government that's going to use it as leverage to enslave us and the people that they help. And every time we it would literally, we'd never treat our neighbor this way. Someone who had personal relationship with. If you went to your neighbor and said, hey, I'm going on vacation, collect my mail, right? And you came home from vacation and collected none of the mail or collected very little of it. You'd be like, hey, the last time I asked you, you didn't collect my mail. I'm going on vacation. Would you collect my mail again this time? Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't go to that entity if it proved that it couldn't do the thing you already asked it to do. Asking it to do more is stupid on your part, not theirs. They've already proven they can't do it. Stop asking them to do shit. Government's stupid and they waste all their money. Hey, let's put them in charge of our medical care.
This time they'll get it right.
This time they'll figure it out.
Julie says, how about corporations and the billionaires? Stop giving their money to politicians to influence government and instead give it to their employees and communities.
How about stop telling other people what to do? This is an individual conversation where you say what you're going to do and you stop paying attention to what the other guy's going to do.
Yeah. That's a funny thing where people will always say, well, make the billionaires do this. We'll make them give it to this. We'll make them. I'll almost listen to that if you can tell me everything you did. this week to help. If you're giving your paycheck to this cause and you're going out and you're talking to these people and you're helping to school these people and you're doing this and you're doing that, and then you say, I can't believe no one else is doing this, that's totally different than just, well, I don't have the abilities to do that. They do, and I'm going to make them do it.
So one of the virtuous principles that I try to do everywhere, it's a tough one, but it's a noble one. Okay, so I'm going to give you two words, and you tell me which one is the noble, virtuous one, and you tell me the one that is evil and is reprehensible. Okay. So if you were sitting in front of a person, you have two choices. You either coerce the person, or you try to, motivate them to do something. Motivation versus coercion. Which one's noble? Which one is not?
Motivate sounds better than coerce.
Okay, so I have the ability, I have the freedoms right now to do anything that I want. I could tell me what to do. I can do things, right? If I wanted to buy a piece of property or help somebody out or buy lunch, I can control me, and that's really all I'm afforded. I also have the ability that I'll tell you about it, right? So I went out, I felt really good. Hey, won't you join me this week to also take some of your resources and you help them too. It felt really good, and I think you should do it too. And then you have the ability to say no, or you have the ability to say yes. The better I am at motivating you, right? The more effective I am. What about the coercive side? If I feel like, even if I do it, if I feel like telling you what to do, manipulating you to do it, or stealing directly from you and making you do what I think you should do, we are now not on the path of nobility and virtue. We are on the terrible, vice, evil path, right? So I think corporations, I think this person, I think that person should do it. You're basically saying, I own and control your thoughts and your motivations. And that is always ends up in evilness. So do I think you should, write a letter to the CEO and say, hey, I think you should do this? Yes, you're trying to motivate them to do something that you see as a noble thing and cool. And you got to be cool with being told no. You're not a 15-year-old that really hates it when an authority tells you, no, you can't do something. You got to suck it up, try again, and try to motivate maybe somebody else. So, but yeah, I'll always reject the whole, you think somebody else should do something because you want to take a noble gesture, and you feel noble when you make someone else do something noble, but it doesn't work that way. If you did the thing, that'd be a different story. I would say, that's awesome. You're a good person. But if you force your neighbor to give to the Cancer Society research thing, and you're like, hey, listen, I made Bill Smith give it to the cancer thing. You're evil because you tried to control another human being. And in America, we don't like when other people are slaves to other people.
I like this idea of motivate by doing.
Yes.
Here's something I did. It was a charitable giving. It was something that was helpful. It made me feel good. I'm encouraging others to do the same. Do you not see, though, in our culture now that someone would see or hear you say that and be like, oh my God, you're bragging. You only did it to brag. You only did it to say
I
you
don't
could
give a
do it.
shit.
Make yourself look better.
I don't give a shit.
Is that what you like? I've done stuff before where I was like, oh, that was really great. I wish I could share this. And like you said, encourage others to go do the same. But I don't, because I'm like, oh, they're going to say, oh, you did it for
I want to
this
encourage you. I want to, again, this is not humility. We don't know what these words mean anymore. So people think this false sense of humility is that the brag, like why follow that rule if you're not going to follow any of the other noble rules? Because there's a benefit in condemning another person for doing something, right? And rather than, hey, you know what? Go on social media and say that I gave to the charitable fund, hoping that somebody sees it and says, I didn't even know that was there. I'm going to give to the fund before. And then you getting the condemnation from other people where you were just trying to show everybody that you were better than them and you're more virtuous than them and you're just bragging. That is not what bragging is, right? Look up humility, and that is not what you're doing there.
So I should share more about
Absolutely.
things.
You should set an example for the sake of the example to inspire other people to do good things, using you as the model for doing those good things. You should also shame the shit out of people. You should judge other people. You should make them feel terrible when they make terrible choices. You're doing them no service by letting them do bad things and have confidence and be a model to other people for doing the wrong things. So if you just need to counter bad decisions with bragging, so be it. You made people better at the end of the day.
It's interesting. Julie says, I pay forward all the time. It creeps me out to brag about it.
No, brag about it. Tell everybody that they should be doing it too. And the more people that we can get on the street doing good things, and really, we're talking about motives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, Dave Ramsey, again, the biblical teachings answer all of these questions. You got to dig into it, looking for answers, not looking for judgments against what you're being told, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Dave Ramsey said, in his brain, because he's a human being, sometimes he can't tell his own motivations. And the only way that he can tell his motivations is if he invents a test to see what his motivations are. So, for instance, if he gives to a charitable cause, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be a point where you were really happy about the charitable cause, and then you got the tax benefit from it. And there's going to be a point where you're like, maybe I was disengaged from the charitable cause and I only did it from the tax benefit. How am I going to know that I do this for the tax benefit? And he said, oh, very easy. Let's do it and not claim it. Am I equally as motivated to give to the cause if I know that I'm going to exclude the tax benefit? And if I'm just as motivated to give to the cause, I'll know it because I'm judging me, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't want, if you're like, it's raining out there and I don't want to go serve today and whatever. If you say, well, I won't be able to say on social media that I didn't do this, so let me go do this so I can do the social media reveal. Now your motives are, you're just doing it for the acknowledgement rather than doing the thing. If you're like, I'm going to go serve meals today and I'm not going to say anything about it. Do I feel like going serving meals today? That puts you in check to know whether or not you did it for the encouragement and the acknowledgement, or you did it because that's what you wanted to do. It's all self-discipline.
Yeah. And see, my husband and I have been in a very real example of that, as where we had an idea about it was literally, and there was a lot of connections as to why we were doing it. It was tied to a couple of different things, but the actual act was taking meals to people. And it was it was like a Friday. It would be like Friday evenings for several weeks, our own money. We bought it ourselves. We drove it ourselves. We did all this other things. And it got to the point a couple weeks in, like, it's Friday. I'm tired. I don't want to go do this, but I'm doing it. And at one point, we sort of opened up to some church people what we were doing and said, anyone else who would like to contribute, if you want to pay for some of these meals, we'll be the driver and your money will go to this cause or whatever. And so then they would. And so I saw where, hey, if we got loud enough about this, this could be bigger. But ultimately, it went back to that. I don't want to look like I'm doing this for like a pat on my back. So I'm just not going to say anything and just do it.
Yeah, don't let that be your default. And again, because it's human nature, you have to keep yourself in check. You will always wane. The person that does remote work on day one sticks to the 8-hour deal and they wane. You do the charitable thing once and you wane, right? It's because the stimulus that gives you the great feeling, that becomes your new floor, and you have to even go above and beyond that in order to get the same response to keep you motivated in doing it. So that's like having your prayer sessions to remind you why you're doing this in the first place. Reorient yourself instead of being the opportunist that your brain really is, because it's a really primitive organ, right? Yeah. You have to put yourself back in check and get realigned to why you started to do things. So if you started sending a check to your favorite charity and you felt good about sending the check, would you put it on auto pay so that you didn't even see the money going in there? No, you'd be depriving yourself of the emotional response of feeling good about giving that check every month. If you put it on autopilot, you look 5 months later, I sent 9 checks here. Didn't even realize any of them. They still got to people and they helped people, but I felt like I was completely disconnected from why I started doing this in the first place. Would you deprive yourself of feeling good that you said hi to someone and they smiled? If all you said hi and you couldn't see their face anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the connection cycle.
Because it does make you want to keep doing it.
Yes. That's by design. That's how we're biologically programmed.
I mean, we talked one day about the whole like paying behind you in the Starbucks line. Do you know that the person behind you can afford their Starbucks? Yes. Is it about the money? No. It's about spreading sort of that little bit of joy, that little kindness. And then I've been the recipient of that, where someone paid for me and I went, oh my gosh, that was so nice. And I instantly am looking for something else I can do. Well, what can I do?
It changes
what can I
your
do for
brain. But again, this is finesse. So only people who are multidimensional in thinking, not single transactional in thinking, will know the mathematics and what motivates us to do things. You go to the gym and you feel good and you have, a certain thing. And then maybe 2 months from now, you're going for completely different reasons than in the beginning. And you'd get to decide, what are the noble reasons? Like maybe you go first because of you felt bad and now you feel good. Maybe it is that you had an accountability person and you're happy when they show up, and it's the more the relationship, you feel good, you accomplish that. Now it's about the relationships and still doing something healthy, but the primary is that you get to spend with other people. And then maybe it wanes and you start doing it for the wrong reasons. But you can also say, okay, well, the gym isn't the bad part. It was my intentions that made it either good or bad. And if I'm giving for the tax deal, and maybe it was a little for the tax deal, but mostly because it felt good, and then the feel goods went away and now it's only for the tax thing, well, I got to rejigger it so that I'm not doing it for bad reasons. I'm not doing it for the acknowledgement. I got to shift back over so it's back to noble again. And that's a constant process.
I'm actually currently in this state of wondering, something I've been doing, can I keep it up? Like I've been doing the whole read the Bible in a year thing. Started in January and it's almost done. We're in October. And I started it out of a sense of obligation. I said, I've never read it, and some people are doing this together, and this is a goal of mine. I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to say that I finally read it, and I know what's in this book. And I have questioned myself, what am I getting out of this? Is this something I can continue when January 1st comes back around? I don't have to do it. I did it. I completed my goal. I read it. I'm getting enough out of it that is helpful in my own life and makes me feel good. Can I then do it again or consistently without this thought of, well, I feel like I need to, or it's just this, I'm just trying to get to the end of the year to finish this book. Is it something I can stick with because of the good that can come from that, which we're going to see.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big reader.
Yeah. Don't be ashamed of that. There's a lot of people in this country and in the United States that need to feel a little bit of shame and do need to be judged. You are not one of them. And so you are you're very hard on yourself. You're putting unneeded standards where if we get to a point where everybody's so humble they don't want to say what they're doing because they don't want anybody else to feel bad, fine. But until we get to that point, deal out some shame.
And there can be a difference, I think, between like we've all seen those people on social media that have like a camera in the face of the person they're helping. I've done things where I don't want to say who it is I'm helping because of their privacy. But I guess, are you saying then you can still sort of have some privacy? You don't have to put anyone on the spotlight. You don't have to put anyone, sort of in the spotlight that doesn't want to be, but still encourage the acts.
Don't get hung
themselves.
up on that. And just talk about the acts and what you hope happens because of what your deed was or what your motivation. So maybe it's just like I was feeling kind of selfish and I knew that I need to be more charitable. And so I was trying to invent a way to dig out of my, sort of like myself and get outside of that. And here's what I did. You didn't have to name a person or the motive or whatever. You didn't have to make it theater. You just shared an experience about there's 5 million other people that are in your same boat that know they should be doing more and whatever. And those words of you doing something might motivate and inspire those people. Doesn't have to be, I helped Bob Smith and here's the way, good on me kind of thing. Doesn't have to go down that way.
Just sort of the bigger picture.
Exactly. Yeah. Jerry says, what are your thoughts on the church saying they are short-staffed with the priests and they're unable to do what the church did years ago? That's bullshit. And for number one, yes, they're a different institution they were because they played the wrong game. They decided to go passive and not take on culture the way that they should have. They didn't create generals that could go out there and slay the evil and demons in our society. And they got real comfortable in their little parishes and their synagogues and their churches, and the rest of us who live every day don't even run into one of them. Okay, so no shit that you're going to shrink when you don't take on a role that means something in society. If you went places and you always ran into them and the experiences were the word of God everywhere and you saw it in everyday life, that'd be a different story. So don't blame the government for kicking out. I could walk out there right now and do stuff that will make other people see what I'm doing and be a role model for more of that stuff to be done. So yeah, you might not have institutional leaders that are equal to what they are, but you still have billions of people that have not been told to go in the street and be a great example of what your religion stands for.
This is so interesting we're talking about this because I saw just like a teeny tiny little example. My son had a baseball game Monday night, and I wasn't aware of who the other team we were playing was. But I'm sitting there and they're warming up and everyone's taking their seats and it's getting ready to start. And I start noticing like the families, the people from the other team start coming in. And I'm starting to notice they're very friendly, which is sad that stands out in this day and age. But it was true. Just saying hello to us, the other team, as they walk by, chatting, smiling. And then I started noting the kids on their team were warming up next to us. One of the little boys, and we're talking like 9, 10-year-olds, turns to us being me, my family, the people on the opposite team, for no reason goes, "Hi, hope you have a great game." We're like, "Thanks, kid. You too." You know, he missed a ball and it hit the fence as a woman was walking by and she jumped and he's like, "I'm sorry I scared you." And I was like, these are the sweetest people. And I look and they have some sort of Christian school on there.
That's the cultural influence. And if we invested 10 years of coddling the culture that made us worse, then you get more of it. That's what you invested in.
Yeah. I wanted to be like, what school are you? What is it you teach? Like, you all seem delightful. And
do more
I
of
that.
Know
why.
Yeah. The experiment of make public schools do the same thing that crafted those kids. And it's not socioeconomic. It is 100% culture and what we embrace and which we push away. And we push religion out of things and you get a, sort of like a void in our culture.
I even saw the two kids were warming up and one kid threw it to the other kid and he goes, "Oh, thank you for throwing that underhand for me." And the other kid goes, "You're welcome." And I'm just like, am I watching little robots? Like, again, it's sad that I was taken aback by how sweet and considerate they all were.
Purity is mocked, right? Purity is punished instead of the other way around.
I felt different.
Yep, exactly.
I wanted to go out and be like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but you're raising them right. Like, these kids are polite. All the parents are friendly. Like, what is this organization?
Yep. So secularists, suck it. You lose again. You had a bad experiment. Just admit that you were absolutely wrong and you didn't find any kind of morality in what your biology and what your brain suggested is real morality. So suck it.
Oh, yeah, because what will always eventually happen is someone brings up this idea that religion or spirituality or whatever it is, following teachings of the church or the Bible, is the bad thing to do, because look at priests that have harmed kids. Look at wars in the name of religion. And they start saying all these different things about why it's not the right thing. It's actually the evil thing to follow. What do you usually say to those points?
I, as a kid, from as young as I can remember, had interactions in church, right, for decades that made me a better person and populated my brain with morality and virtue. In that church, I ran across in individual instances of misbehavior. So as an adult, and I look to say, did the misbehavior come from the institution, and the misbehavior come because it's built of individuals? So if you can find an institution that has people, the same things happen in everywhere: politics, government, religion, your neighborhood. It exists everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you take the grains of the teachings and what people pick up out of it and try to make people better because of it, like, why do they do it? Do you think someone has ever picked up religion and used it to control other people?
Yeah.
Do you think that is supported by the religious institution, or do you think they would say that's a bad thing?
They'd say that's
okay. So individual actions don't define what it means to me and my experiences with it. So if a whole team of basketball players come out on the field and are way better than everybody else, not on there, but better people, right?
Mhm.
So pick the churn. So if everybody that goes through religion, you have a higher percentage of people who follow, rules that make them better people and make them want to watch your kid and watch your house and collect your mail and more responsible, disciplined people. If the majority of that comes from a religion, you got to learn from that and find out what about this whole religion makes a higher percentage of good people that come out of there, rather than saying, hey, we got public education, right? Sure, we get people that graduate and go off to college and cure cancer and whatever. But this guy over here, he went to public education and he robbed a house. What do you say to those people who say public education causes people to rob houses? I'm going to argue that everybody robs houses in the right circumstances. We all have it in our biology to be able to do the actions, and under the right premise, you can rob a house, right?
Mhm.
So are you saying that the book that teaches that people will fall, human beings are flawed and they'll fall, and the pursuit is to overcome those failings and repent for them and try to make yourself better? If it's already in the instruction book that everybody that's in there is going to fall victim to the same thing that everybody outside the religion is, it's a 1-for-1. You're not making an argument against anything except for, yep, human beings, that's what we do.
Yeah, there's even a term for it. It's called, I've heard the term church hurt. Have you ever heard that? Church hurt, people that sort of have gotten away from the church because something hurt them.
An instance, yes.
Yeah. And I always tell them, I'm like, I'm sorry somebody did it wrong with you. That's not what it should have been. But I mean, do we have like society hurt?
Exactly. And we don't hold any other institution, right? We don't hold them accountable for their most reckless in there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have anything. Like, let's just say the next person in government that cheats, steals, or lies, we just get rid of the whole government. Right. We basically say government just breeds out those liar, cheats. Now, government's a bad example because most of them probably do lie, cheat, and steal as part of their, their everyday job. But I don't blame the institution. I blame the people that occupy that institution.
Yeah. Have you ever loved a business like a restaurant or a store or something, and you love it, and then they hire someone you don't like, and they're rude and they're not helpful, and they just sort of ruin your whole experience of going there? But let's say that person gets fired. Do you still hate their business then forever?
Right. Just a person.
They did it wrong.
The teachings did. I could, if I just took the pieces of religion that I learned and just teach those ones and know that those were the most influential on me. And I create great people using just maybe 1% of everything that's taught out of the Bible. Because there's probably stuff I disagree with in the Bible and I skipped over those. And I just applied the ones that helped me and made me a better person. And cool. I did that with every literature that I've ever, business books. You think I just went in a business book and followed every line? Hey, that might have worked for you and then maybe at a different time or whatever, but that one's not for me. I'm going to skip to this one, which is completely influential and completely helped me. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah. And I've even told people before, like, even this whole like Bible reading, regular church attendance, disciple making conferences, like this is sort of a new thing for me only in the last couple of years that I've sort of been in this space. And I cannot express more strongly or strongly enough how it truly does change your life. And I don't care if that sounds corny or silly. I'm telling you, 1000% it retrains your brain. It makes things different. Things come to you in life that maybe felt like they weren't before. It absolutely does. And it's funny when, I can do all these things. I can wear my little cross necklace. And I can't tell you if I honestly believe Adam and Eve existed. I don't know.
Yeah.
like,
That's the point.
I don't know if this thing actually happened.
You and I could have a really good discussion because it would be in good faith. I would not ask you a question about religion as a gotcha moment to dissuade you from, pursuing being a better person. So if you go there and you're a better person, I don't care if it's the coffee. I don't care if it's the songs. I don't care if it's the relationships. I don't care. You're a better person because of it. Keep doing it.
Mhm.
Now, people who argue religion, right? That and one principle that I learned down the road, not when I was young, but a pastor said it. I felt like they were exactly talking to me, that you can do anything you want, right?
Mhm.
The one thing that is frowned upon more than most others is becoming an obstacle for another person's pursuit, right? And I don't know
An obstacle.
so getting in the way, like you're trying to do something, if I dissuade you, stop you, be an obstacle to you pursuing something, I never have good intention. So why, if you're using religion to become a better person, and I tell you something that maybe makes you question or have doubt over what you're doing, and then you don't do those things and don't become a better person, will I feel like I did a good service to teach you the truth that I didn't believe it, so I don't want you to believe it? Or could I have done a bunch of other, more productive things, like saying, I don't agree with how the things are being taught or what's even in that book, but I see you're doing really well and you keep going for it and you've got my support, which sounds even better when explained that way.
Yeah. And I've actually experienced both. I have a friend who's an atheist and says, look, if this helps people, it helps people.
Yeah.
Good for them. I don't buy it. I don't think it's real, but I'm not going to tell anyone not to do it. And I have someone that actively fights me.
Yeah.
Like, realize this is a made up.
That's the Julie comment. And sorry for judging you on this, Julie, but the profile of Democrats are telling other people what to do. No accountability for what you're doing and telling other people what they should do, right?
Mhm.
Rather than you doing it and you just inspiring other people to do it. They're actively saying, well, that person over there should be doing X, Y, Z. So let's just say you think taxes should be 60%, right? There's a form in the IRS that allows you to fill out and pay more taxes than you're deserved or you have to pay. And you could do that every day. So if you believe so much that people are dangerous when they have too much of their own money, you can say, I filled out this form and I paid 60% of my income and here's why I'm better. You should do it too, right? Absolutely. But it's not that. There's a justification that says, well, I shouldn't do it because that person makes more money for me. So do you see what came on the first level of telling someone else to do is a vice? That's envy. It's exactly what you're charging another person with, that you are projecting to them what you're guilty of in the moment. And me, I could just point those things out. But again, there's no good faith arguments with me. It's always the gotcha thing.
Yeah.
Like the Adam and Eve. Do you think Adam and Eve happened? Do you really think Noah's Ark happened? There's a bunch of things. Do you think there were giants? Do you think that, the smiting that happened on people and the tests that, was it Job or the family where their family was destroyed? Who are those people?
I don't know.
Anyway, there were two. The father was tested, and unimaginable things were done to their family as a bet between whatever. And
his kids all died, and he got leprosy.
Yes, but he still had faith, and he still.
I think it was Job.
Bet between. Yeah. Do I believe all those things?
I can't believe I know that.
I don't know. Is it an allegory? Is it a parable? Is it an example of the unlimited sacrifices that other people are willing? What was it supposed to do? What does it inspire in you? What do you pull out of that story? Do you think it's mean that somebody suffered sacrifices, imposed sacrifices over a bet between God and the devil? Frame that way, you'd probably disagree.
Well, and I think even in Job, wasn't it? God knew the devil wanted to do bad things to him, and he said, go ahead. And he let him. And everyone's like, oh, what kind of God would let him? And
okay,
it's
so let's just say it's just an allegory, right? Mm-hmm. What can you draw out of that? That's good. Just pull a good nugget out of that. The only good nugget that's in there. What could you take away from that story if it's a story?
You can pull out the good nugget of having faith and remaining faithful to something regardless of what happens to you.
Interesting. Yes, that's a very noble thing.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to stick in when things get really tough and things make you challenge whether or not you should still be in the faith, having a little bit of fortitude in your belief in your faith.
Yeah.
If that was a part of the story, like then I'm going to say, and my parents said this to me all growing up, there's always somebody worse than you. right?
Mhm.
So if I wanted to check you and say, you didn't eat your beans, right?
Mhm.
There's a kid in China that doesn't have any beans. So the check is going to, I don't even know the China kid. It's a theoretical China kid at the time when there were too many Chinese and a lot of them starved out because they didn't have any food for their family. I use this example to check you to say, you think you got it bad here. There's someone way worse than you out there. And be thankful that you're not that guy. So if I'm pulling two nuggets, it's what you said, and that there's always an example of someone suffering way more than you are.
Yeah. And I've told this story before, but I remember when I was in elementary school and I was a little kid one time, I came home from school and I was all mad. And I told my parents, some kid on the playground was calling us rich. Oh, they're rich. Well, they're rich. They blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not rich. And I was all mad. Like, you know, he was saying it kind of in like a derogatory way. And I was like, but we're not rich. And like, by definition of like what equals wealthy and what is average income, like according to statistics, I'm sure we were very average and wouldn't be considered rich. And so I'm all like up in arms. And my dad's like, don't ever say that to someone. Don't ever say you're not, because to them, maybe you are. Mm-hmm. And to this day, like every so often, I'll look around and I'll be like, statistically, when you look at annual household incomes and stats and blah, 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 and what constitutes wealthy, like I wouldn't be in that category. Would
you want, take everybody that's below you, would you invite all of them to share the knowledge that you had to get to the level that you are in a heartbeat?
Would I invite them to hear what I did to get here?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And you invite them in the circumstance of they could be that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the nugget that you would pull out of that is you have the people who want to diminish and create an obstacle of making you feel bad about your position. And then there's no activity on the other side of it. You feel shame that you're in a position where they're worse than you. Or you could be like, oh, like if there are people that I've taken for granted where I'm at right now, I need to have the humility to realize that there's way worse off than me and really appreciate what I have. And then offer my assistance for anybody who's open to the ingredients that gets them there. That's the circuit that should be forged.
Yeah. Cause I actually live in this mindset of, by comparison, in some situations, I do feel rich.
Yep.
And I'm not even talking about just money. I feel like a rich person sometimes, that I have a lot of wonderful, wonderful things that I value greatly in my life that a lot of people don't have.
So the evil Democrats that say you have it because of your privilege. Okay. And now what you want to do, instead of reacting and defending that it's not privilege.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to dissuade you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But your reaction to it being a privilege, then internalize and find, what awarded me that privilege? Was it decisions I made? Was it education that I got? Or the people that surrounded me? And then now you have information, real valuable information, that if there's someone who can say the end of the conversation was accuse you of being privileged, I'm not interested in becoming you. I want you to stop going because I am envious of you. Now you go find someone who doesn't charge it, spend all of your time instead of arguing with the immovable person that just wants to hurt you.
Yeah.
Go find someone who would love to have the information that got you where you are right now.
Oh, let me tell you what I did for several years. Let
Find
me tell
that
you what I
person.
sacrificed. Let me
Don't
tell you
get
how
hung-
I did this.
Don't get hung up with the jerkwad, the evil Democrat who wants to condemn you for having what you have.
I love when people would say to my husband, you retired at what age? 39. Oh, must be nice. He's like, oh, okay. Should I tell you what I did the last 20 years?
No.
To retire
Don't spend
at 39?
the time. Find someone to encourage and give that information to. So let's switch gears because we went really long on that segment here. Let's talk about the East Wing of the White House and the Trump ballroom that is. You seen the renderings?
Well, I knew there was a ballroom in the works, but that's about it. I don't really know much else about it.
Construction has begun.
Okay.
So they tore off a portion of the East Wing. And now, do you love or hate this idea?
I don't really know a lot about it.
Okay.
Creating a ballroom.
Yeah.
Was there already a ballroom, or there's
No.
never been a ballroom?
No. There's the West Wing, which is sort of all of the executive branched offices, right? That's where all the stuff happens at the White House.
Yeah.
Then you have the personal residence, and then you have the business offices in the East Wing. And so they tore a portion of the East Wing off and they put up a ballroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
What exactly was the East Wing being used for?
Offices.
Like what kind of offices?
Just business offices.
What kind of businesses?
I don't know. Nobody really knows.
Well, how do I know how I feel about this if I don't know if it was a good trade or not?
If you took the least utilized portion of the White House, it would be the East Wing. So if you're going to tear off a portion of it and add to it and mess with it, it would be the East Wing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this ballroom, I'm assuming, is for entertaining?
Yes.
And who's paying for this ballroom?
Trump and some investors paid the whole thing. No government money was spent. $0.
Well, I feel better about it.
Okay.
I don't have strong feelings. I think if you wanted it, if you paid for it, you didn't put anyone else out for it, and you didn't harm something in the making of it,
right?
I don't mind.
So, okay. So past presidents making additions. We have a bowling alley that was installed. Right. We have a basketball court that was installed, and we have an indoor swimming pool that was installed. Okay.
This place must be massive.
And so, if anything, the amenities at the White House are superb.
Yeah.
Right? It's got some stuff going
like a
on
palace.
there. Now, from a small government Joe here, it should be just enough to get by. If you create opulent, whatever, just acknowledgments of yourself, it becomes a little much, right? So if it was that government wanted to be humble and they didn't want to show the populace that they're being governed just how much stuff they can accumulate in that place, I think it's a bad look to have it as opulent as it is. Right.
A little tone deaf.
If you build it of, siding in wood versus marble, you let the people know that, when I build for me, I make it marble. And when I build something for you, I make it plywood. Right. It's showing sort of like I'm better than you kind of a thing. So from that look, I can see that I'm not a big fan of it based on its opulence.
Looking less and less like a servant position.
Yes.
More like a prestige.
A monument. Yes.
Yeah.
So number 2, the White House was completely symmetrical until now. All right.
Oh no.
It's completely symmetrical.
I feel differently.
Now on the East Wing, you're going to have this massive building that's a big rectangle. And now when you show a picture of the White House, it's going to look heavy to the left.
Oh no.
Yes.
The OCD in me feels differently about this.
Okay. So my hatred is in 2 things. Didn't cost us any money. So from that standpoint, I don't care.
Yeah.
The amenities annoy me because it should not be grandeur, right? It should be minimalist. And the symmetry is probably the biggest one. That's the one that gets me.
That's going to be it for me too.
Yeah.
What's wrong with our brains that's the downfall? Like
it was beautiful the way that it was.
It was even. Like, how are you gonna? Isn't the White House, like the official White House, not logo, but like when you see on their social media, it's like a picture of the White House.
Is it? Is it the cap? It is the White House. Yeah, it is the White House.
Like their YouTube page and stuff. So now it's just gonna be like, oh no.
So what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to erect a building of equal size on the other side. And that will at least satisfy my symmetry request. But I don't know what you would put because now it becomes even more opulent. And then where do you need a big building like that for something else? So halfway, I want them to spend more money and do another building.
Yeah. What would you put over there? If you could add something to the White House that you think is important, what would be there?
I mean, from a book standpoint, if you look through the expenses sheet on what the government spends money for renting other places to do things, like when it has a ball or a dinner or whatever, rather than renting a hotel ballroom, now you have your own on the the left side. So go down to the next line item and what do you see expense wise that people are utilizing privately, and build your own to say, and then you can at least justify it existing.
What about like a chapel of some sort?
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
Is there any kind of chapel church type of?
It's probably a small one, but I'm sure
there's one in there.
Yeah, I do.
I wonder.
I do. I can look it up. That's a good.
We should look it up. Is there any sort of religious chapel? What's another word for like you know what I'm talking about though? Like any sort of little chapel like thing in the White House would be interesting to see. And it could be sort of like non-denominational.
No chapel in the White House.
There's no chapel, but there are spaces for worship in a nearby historic church. So a nearby one, but not actually in the White House. Because church and state, would they think, oh, it's too close, it's a government thing? Because again, you don't have to have it anything but a designated space. It doesn't have to be, the Virgin Mary or whatever else in there. Be interesting. Julie says, my problem about it is the selling off history for another Mar-a-Lago party room for donors.
Okay, so first off, like, is it selling off history because of the part of the building that was demolished? And do you feel the same way about the Obama basketball court and the bowling alley and the swimming pool?
Yeah.
That they took, I mean, the White House has been rebuilt on 3 different occasions that I know. One after a destruction, one after getting it up to current building methods and code and, efficiencies and whatever. So I get that. And I know Julie would probably be critical no matter what changes they would make from a historic perspective, but I don't necessarily think there's been let's just say Thomas Edison, his house growing up, right?
Yeah.
And people flock to Thomas Edison's house to see where the inspiration came when he was growing up. And it's the exact house. And then you find out later that in the 1970s, they had to, rip down a couple walls to make it whatever. Is it still the house? Like, is it still his house? Or because there's pieces that are not part of the original house or newly additions to the house, is it no longer his house? That's really the question.
And yeah, kind of like you said, I mean, to make another Mar-a-Lago party room for donors, do you know it's for donors? Can it be used for honoring anyone else? Do you not think that like other people, whether it's members of the military or other people in the community, are invited there for parties? Then it's not just for donors. Well, again, what's the bowling alley and basketball court being used for?
From a security standpoint, if we live in times where there's a threats on the life of president, dignitaries, and whatever, and so you created a compound that was almost like where's the Pope live?
Vatican.
The Vatican. All right, so you made it so it was all controlled by you. So instead of Trump having to go to a party that's down the road, you have a ballroom that he could just stay on premises where they can, hold down the security measures.
Because then people are going to say, oh, the money they're spending on all their travel expenses or security to leave the White House. And
it'd be more contained. But then it's also like you won the office and you get to customize the White House just like every other president was. Like the Rose Garden was the last one where you had this. You ever been to the Rose Garden? You ever visited White House?
I know in 8th grade I was like out front, but that's about it.
Segment of the lawn. I think it was the Kennedys maybe that Jackie Kennedy planted roses and they called it the Rose Garden. It's just a part of the lawn that had flowers. And Trump took a portion of that and paved it over and put chairs and almost like a patio, like at Mar-a-Lago. Okay. And the dude builds stuff. So it's not, it's not surprising that he would bring his favorite things from the places he hangs out. We made the joke, like the first time he was used to living in Trump Tower where there was every amenity. When he went to the White House, it was actually a downgrade on what he was used to. He almost wouldn't want to spend time in the White House when it was less comfortable, less amenities than what he was used to doing. And very few people get a downgrade by going to the White House. Most of us, it would be an upgrade to what we're used to.
Yeah. Which again, if it's a downgrade for you, fine. It's a servant position.
Right.
So it shouldn't be an upgrade. But if it's his money, he can do it. I can't imagine anybody that follows him complaining about.
Well,
having
they've already
something-
started talking about the next president is going to demolish the ballroom just so you won't have the Trump ballroom.
If that happens, I would be mad because that would be a waste of money.
Yes.
Because they're not going to foot the
It's just
bill to
petty.
do that. Yeah. Like it's one thing.
Well, what if they did? What if they raised enough money to demolish the Trump ballroom and put it back to its original intact design?
I guess if it's your money and you want to do it, you can do it.
Customize. You're president. If you don't like it there, you don't like it's called Trump, you rip it down, build it back.
Yeah.
So people be happy about
that. It's not taxpayer money. If it's something you're footing the
They
bill
could put
for.
the Rose Garden back when you get in power. I mean, that seems like an
Yeah.
incentive to win an election, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah. If it's on you, if it's
As long
only
as
on
it's
you.
symmetrical.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Return the symmetry, please.
Julie says those areas of the basketball court and swimming pool were in unused portions of the White House. Those areas were in unused portions.
So, Julie, you're going to be a traditionalist. You're going to be a conservative with me. When you respect the history of why things are and are unwilling to change those because of the historical impact, that's an indication that I'm going to be able to bring you onto my side. So if you have some kind of foundational principle that we must honor because it has historical significance to me and I feel a way about it and it inspires me, then we should keep it. Even if you can make an improvement, right, and make a justification, let's keep what we have and not add things to it. There's my underpinnings for a future argument.
You got me thinking now about the whole symmetrical look of the. I was looking up the other day. I truly believe I have a small form of OCD, and I think it's real. And do you think most people do? Do you think most people are bothered by things that are uneven? And if so, why? Do you think it's getting worse? I don't know. It's just things I think about.
You don't want my real opinion on this one. Yeah, everybody has OCD. Everybody has ADHD. Everybody has all of these illnesses that blame other things for their impulses and
Their
compulsion
weirdness.
to do things and their total misunderstanding of how their brain works and the lack of control over those functions. Yeah, it's probably that. You should probably take some medication for it.
I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Or
I'm
just
working on breaking it.
Yeah.
Like these habits I've noticed, I'm trying to break them. Let's see. Julie says he did not get approval or permits from anybody. You can't put up a shed without permits.
And we'll see if he got the proper permits, then we'll see if he gets in trouble for doing it. But
what would trouble
that's your
be?
hang up?
What would trouble be? Pay a fine?
Probably.
You think you'd just pay the fine?
You're reaching now, Julie, on the wasn't allowed to do it. You didn't want him to do it. You don't like that he did it. And
if it were Biden who did it and his own reasons, you'd probably feel differently about it.
Yeah, you'd be a little more forgiving for
Julie's
the permits.
Like,
and you just don't like it. Anything he does from this point, Julie will not like and raise the singular objection only for this guy, not for all other presidents, but for this guy.
There's Carter. I was going to say, I know Carter's coming up here somewhere. He says elections have consequences.
Yes.
Now, go ahead.
Do you think, though, that if with Harris, when the campaigns were running, if she would have stood at the podium and said, if this guy gets elected, he's just going to put a ballroom up next to the White House, do you think anybody would have cared or even thought that was a possibility?
People in their right minds probably wouldn't have put much weight behind that. I don't care.
Yeah.
To me, that was the whole Democratic running tactic to me. Everything they said, everything they pushed was okay. So like there wasn't a single true threat or idea that was better than the other or something that stood out as, oh, that's the right way to do things and this is not. Their entire campaign, and the reason I think Trump won is they had nothing of substance. Everything was like, well, he's this. Okay. Well, he might do this. Okay. And nobody believed it. Well, he's a racist. I don't believe he is. Well, he's a bigot. I don't think he is. Well, he's a Nazi. Nope, don't see that. Well, he's going to use money for this. Okay. Like, give us something that we care
Should
about.
we give them the cheat code? I will tell any liberals or Democrats the cheat code that is being used against you right now, and you have 100% control in its effectiveness. I mean, some people are like, don't tell them they're making this mistake and they'll keep it.
No, don't.
No, but I can tell you, and you're still going to fall victim to it. So like one of the first indications that the bait the bear strategy was being used by Trump. Do you remember when the first campaign that he got about $6 billion in free media coverage? Do you remember that?
Not really.
Okay. So every news network spent every waking hour, right, with Trump headlines. And Trump was like, oh, if I do outrageous stuff, they're going to talk about me. And if they're talking about me, then I'm going to be relevant and I can convert.
Oh, you're saying he got this just through natural, like they wanted to.
Well, it might have naturally happened, but once he saw that it was happening, he would use that bait to keep that energy flowing. And he knew these him-ha, like you, okay, if I knew that nobody else was going to care, but I knew you were going to really care, I could use a little bit of a carrot, right? Make you mad in exactly the way that I know you'll make me mad. Nobody else will care that you're mad. And I can do that over and over and over again. Zero downside because nobody else gets mad other than you, right? And all upside because now you're distracted and you're putting all your energy in something that doesn't matter. If I knew that I could just keep the bear occupied with the treat, right? And I could just keep him paying attention to the treat. How long before the bear would figure out that the treat was there just as a distractive mechanism and it was meaningless to anybody outside of the pit, right?
Yeah.
So there's your cheat code. All right. None of this stuff is hurting Trump. You're all acting and reacting exactly the way that it's prescribed by the strategy. And all you would have to do is say, oh, this thing that Trump said that was outlandish, I'm going to give it zero energy. And guess what happens? He got to pick a new strategy, one that is less effective than the bait the bear strategy.
Yeah.
100%.
Julie says, I don't like that he is doing it because of the symbolization of his personal aggrandizement while taking away food from while taking away food from kids, 2 new jets for Kristi Noem, the Arc de Trump. It goes on and on every damn day.
Yeah. It would be a little bit more reliable of an argument if the opulence was extended beyond Trump. Right?
How is he taking away food from kids?
It's an argument.
How?
You have to dig. It's a stretch,
it's still
a good. Yes, it really is. It really is a stretch because if the government shuts down, right, and you have no money, and then I'm sitting on $200 million and I don't go out and feed somebody with that $200 million, I put it in, I give it to Argentina or I spend it on a building and I don't give it to the kids, then you didn't care about the kids. It's a big stretch and most people are like, eh.
So they're like, again, tone deaf to build a ballroom when people are in a tight spot right now, even though, like we said, the fundraiser money,
but let them eat cake works. It's worked for all of history. Okay. So it is a good strategy to say those things, but most people don't have the capacity or the attention span to really dig into that one.
Yeah.
All right. We're out of here. Thanks everybody for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.